evening, it's Wednesday the 26th of February and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Resource deal, Zelensky to visit DC and US and Ukraine finalizing critical mineral agreements. Birth rate, South Korea's fertility rises for the first time in 9 years, driven by marriage surge. Music honors Charli XCX named Brit Songwriter of the Year, leading to 5 nominations.
This is World News Tonight with Akhil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to travel to Washington, D.C. in the coming days after the United States and Ukraine agreed to terms on a deal over natural resources and reconstruction.
The U.S. and Ukraine have agreed on the terms of a draft minerals deal central to Kyiv's push to win Washington's support as President Donald Trump seeks to rapidly end the war with Russia. Trump indicated Tuesday he would meet with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky later this week to finalize the agreement, which could open up the country's vast mineral wealth to the U.S.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal.
Trump also said there needs to be some form of peacekeeping troops in Ukraine if an agreement to end the conflict is struck. Moscow has refused to accept any deployment of NATO troops. Trump's rush to impose an end to Russia's war in Ukraine has stoked fears of far-reaching U.S. concessions to Russian President Vladimir Putin that could undermine security in Ukraine and Europe and alter the geopolitical landscape.
The US has twice sided with the Russian in votes of the United Nations to mark the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, highlighting the Trump administration change of stance on this war.
Monday marked exactly 3 years since Russia's invasion of Ukraine led to the ongoing war. Marking the grim anniversary, Ukraine and the European Union drafted a resolution condemning Russia's full-scale invasion, with 93 UN member nations voting in favor and 18 voting against. One of the notable countries voting against a Kyiv-led resolution was the United States. The resolution reaffirms Ukraine's territorial integrity while explicitly naming Russia as the aggressor. It also calls for Moscow to immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. While voting against the Ukraine-led resolution, the U.S. proposed its own resolution on the same day, which did not name Russia as the aggressor. It also noted the tragic loss of life throughout the Russia-Ukraine conflict and called for a swift end to the conflict and a lasting peace between Ukraine and Russia. The UN General Assembly did not approve the resolution, while it passed the European-backed Ukrainian resolution. The contrasting proposals show the tensions that have emerged between Washington and Kyiv with the start of the Trump administration. The passing of the resolution was a win for Ukraine, but with 65 abstentions, the vote shows support for the country in its war against Russia is diminishing. Previous votes in the Assembly saw more than 140 nations show support for Kyiv.
The Kremlin has welcomed what it said was much more balanced US stance on Ukraine after the Trump administration pushed through the UN Security Council resolutions on war that included no criticism of Russia.
Russia has welcomed what it described as a much more balanced US stance on Ukraine. That's after the United Nations Security Council adopted a US-drafted resolution on Monday that took a neutral position on the conflict. The US also unsuccessfully opposed a resolution demanding Russia's withdrawal from Ukraine.
A path to peace is possible.
The vote have exposed divisions between the US and allies such as Britain and France, both of which abstained on the Security Council resolution. And they also highlighted a dramatic shift in Washington's position since President Donald Trump took office. That's been further underscored by the possibility of a collaboration between the US and Russia on rare earth minerals. Rare earth are a group of 17 metals that are crucial in the production of electric vehicles, cell phones, missile systems, and other electronics. On Monday, Vladimir Putin said Russia was open to joint projects with American partners And on Tuesday, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that, quote, "The Americans need rare earth metals. We have a lot of them." Both Putin and Trump have expressed an interest in a potential US-Russia economic deal, but Peskov said significant work is still needed to normalize relations. One area of disagreement appears to be on the issue of European peacekeepers in Ukraine as part of any deal to end the war. As he met with French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday, Trump said Putin was on board with the idea.
Yeah, he will accept that.
He will accept
I've
that.
asked him that question.
On Tuesday, Peskov referred reporters back to an earlier statement by Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Last week, he said Moscow views European peacekeepers in Ukraine as a, quote, direct threat to Russia's sovereignty.
President Trump plans to end an EB-5 immigration investor program and replace it with a new gold card visa requiring $5 million investments and offering an expanded benefit.
U.S. President Donald Trump plans to terminate the EB-5 immigrant investor visa program. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick announced on Tuesday that the, quote, low-priced EB-5 program, which grants permanent residency to foreign nationals promising to invest in American businesses, will be replaced by a gold card system. This new pathway to citizenship would allow individuals to purchase residency for $5 million. Of
course, we're going to make sure they're wonderful, world-class global citizens. They can come to America. The president can give them a green card, and they can invest in America, and we can use that money to reduce our deficit.
Trump has also initiated a probe that could result in tariffs on copper imports. On Tuesday, Trump instructed the Department of Commerce to examine copper imports, and if the probe uncovers evidence of dumping, the administration could impose tariffs or quotas in response. Trump's decision is part of his broader effort to expand his protectionist trade policies. In 2018, he used a similar investigation to justify tariffs on steel and aluminum imports and plans to bring them back next month. Lutnick said Tuesday that it is time for copper to come home, arguing that foreign competition has severely weakened the American copper industry, just as it did with steel and aluminum. Copper is vital for numerous industries, including defense, with the U.S. importing 45% of its supply, mainly from Chile and Canada. Although the U.S. was once the world's top copper producer, it now ranks fifth.
More than 20 civil service employees resigned Tuesday from billionaire Trump's advisory Elon Musk, his Department of Government Efficiency, and says they were refusing to their technical expertise to dismantle critical public services.
The confusion over Elon Musk's email demand that government workers justify their jobs or lose them intensified on Tuesday, after the billionaire advisor to the president told federal employees they had, quote, another chance to respond, contradicting guidance from some Trump administration officials who said the request was voluntary. The new directive was the latest test of how much power Musk wields at the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, an entity created by President Donald Trump to cut government spending. Meanwhile, 21 workers resigned from DOGE in protest, saying in a letter that they refused to cooperate with the downsizing effort. So far, Musk's initiative has led to the layoffs of more than 20,000 workers. Union leaders protested outside the Office of Health and Human Services in D.C. on Tuesday in response to cuts in health care and research, that eliminating career federal employees, who make up the vast majority of the 2.3 million strong civilian government workforce, is viewed as key to the next phase of the downsizing effort by DOGE and Trump's administration.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. South Korea's fertility rate rose in 2024 for the first time in 9 years, supported by an increase in marriages and a sign that country's demographic crisis might have turned a corner.
According to the latest government data, the number of newborns went up 3.6% in 2024, and the annual fertility rate is now at 0.75, up slightly from the previous year. That's the number of children a woman is expected to have during her lifetime. Officials say the rise is partly because of a rebound in marriages after the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, South Korea has had the lowest fertility rate of all 38 OECD countries since 2013. Last year, the government rolled out measures to encourage people to have more kids after now impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol called it a national demographic crisis.
Taiwan's Coast Guard detained a cargo ship and Chinese crew and said it was investigating whether the vessel had deliberately cut an undersea internet cable in the latest possible damage to the island's communication lines.
The Togo-flagged vessel, suspected of damaging the cable which connected Taiwan to its outlying Penghu Islands, was crewed by 8 Chinese nationals. The ship had been lingering over the cable in waters off southwestern coast of Taiwan and did not respond to multiple broadcasts from Taiwan's Coast Guard. Shortly after the ship dropped anchor, Taiwan's telecom company Chunghwa Telecom detected that the cable had been cut. The Coast Guard said it intercepted and boarded the vessel before escorting it back to a port in the city of Tainan for investigation. Taiwanese authorities said they could not rule out the possibility of a Chinese grey zone operation, a coercive or subversive act that falls below the threshold of war. Beijing accused Taipei of manipulating the incident for political purposes. A spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office told reporters in Beijing that damage to undersea cables was a common maritime accident that occurred more than 100 times a year worldwide.
Close call occurred at Chicago Midway International Airport yesterday morning when a Southwest airline plane was forced to abort landing to avoid a private jet that entered the runway without authorization.
Tonight at Chicago's Midway International Airport, an investigation after yet another stunningly close call. The video captured on an airport webcam shows Southwest Flight 2504 nearly touching down. The same moment a private jet crosses the runway. The flight abruptly pulls up, averting potential disaster. The FAA says the Flexjet private jet entered the runway without authorization. Flexjet released a statement saying it's investigating and adheres to the highest safety standards. Meanwhile, Southwest says its crew followed safety procedures, circled the airport, and landed safely. It's the latest in a string of air disasters and mishaps. From the mid-air collision that killed 67 near Reagan National Airport to the air disaster in Philadelphia, a crash landing in Toronto, and most recently, an emergency landing after a cabin filled with haze over Atlanta.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced yesterday that Britain will accelerate an increase to its defence spending. Well, this is of course an eve of the crucial visit to meet US President Donald Trump in Washington.
The British Prime Minister said the move amounted to the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, one that was necessary in light of the threat from Russia. The government had previously set this target, but without specifying a timeline. To pay for the 0.2% raise, Keir Starmer said he'd made the hard choice of slashing overseas development aid by 40%, a decision which has appalled aid groups. Starmer's announcement comes as he gears up to meet US President Donald Trump, who has long complained that European countries aren't pulling their weight on defence, and who stunned them last week when his administration made clear that Europe should no longer count on the United States to provide its security. Defence spending in European countries has surged since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and just 7 European NATO members, including Italy, have still not met the 2% minimum target relative to GDP. The UK currently comes 9th among NATO countries, while Poland is now the top spender, allocating 4.7% of GDP to defence expenditure this year.
Germany's federal election results reveal a surge in support on fringe parties as both the far left, Left Party and the far right, AfD, made historic gains, reflecting depending political polarization amid economic uncertainty and immigration debates.
It was this fiery speech in December by German Left Party leader Heidi Rekenik that went viral on social media, helping lift her faction's membership rolls to record figures. The successor to East Germany's Communist Party then on Sunday scored 8.8% in Germany's federal election, its best result at the ballot box in years. Its resurgence, as well as a historic 20.8% result for the far-right Alternative for Germany, demonstrates growing support for the extremes. That polarisation comes as the outlook for Europe's largest economy is darkening and the arrival of millions of migrants divides the society. The more fringe parties on both sides of the spectrum, the anti-NATO and Russia-friendly Left Party, BSW and AfD, are thriving in former communist Eastern Germany. Political allegiances there are more fickle and both incomes and trust in democratic institutions are lower. The Left Party, which promised rent caps, tax-free food and more support for lower-income households funded by the wealthy, was the most popular among Germans under 30. Their social media savviness tapping in to younger voters. The election result complicates building a government and even governance in a country long considered a bastion of stability. The AfD and Left Party now have the potential to block changes to Germany's constitution, including new debt rules many economists deem essential. The weakness of mainstream parties in Sunday's election, as well as their refusal to work with the AfD, has left only one viable coalition scenario, a so-called grand coalition of the two former Big Tent parties, the SPD and Conservatives. If those negotiations fail, Germany could be facing a minority government or even new elections.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Guinness is teaming up with Field of Vision to revolutionize fan inclusivity in rugby. Their cutting-edge touch-based devices uses haptic technology, allowing visually impaired fans to feel every tackle, try and kick in the real time, transforming the way they experience the game.
It's a big night for Hank Vogel.
What role are you in?
The 11-year-old is ready to watch an NBA game with his family.
Do you have the headphones?
Hank is visually impaired, but thanks to his hometown team, the Portland Trailblazers, all the action is right at his fingertips. This haptic tablet relays game data by touch and sound so Hank can follow in real time. And when his favorite player hits a big three, the celebration is electric. Jared Mace and his team of engineers designed the one-court tablet, which translates gameplay into complex vibrations. Users can follow every movement of the ball. The goal, expanding the tech to other sports. An automated audio feed narrates the action.
Shot. Scored.
How hard was that vibration?
It's just like, ah! It's like, oh, okay. So that's why.
Now, this family bonding over a brand new feel for the game.
At the Brit Awards 2025, Charli XCX was named Songwriter of the Year, adding to an impressive 5 nominations, the most of any artist this year. The UK star is in running for the Artist of the Year, Album of the Year and more, commenting her status on the leading force in music.
Charli's win was celebrated by the chair of the Brit Committee, who praised her bold, experimental songwriting that has taken her music from underground raves to the mainstream. He described Brat as a global phenomenon, applauding her for pushing creative boundaries in electronic and pop music. Despite previous nominations, this marks Charli's first Brit Award win, joining the rank of past recipients like Ray, Kid Harpoon and Ed Sheeran. Her critically acclaimed album, Brat, has been lauded for its genre-defying sound and raw storytelling, with media calling it a record that shifts between fierce confidence and deep vulnerability, a reflection of Charli's unique relationship with her audience. The Brit Award victory caps off an incredible year for the singer, who also took home 3 Grammys and delivered what fans are calling the best Grammy performance in history. With her unmatched creativity and fearless approach to music, Charli XCX continues to redefine the pop landscape, proving she is one of the UK's most influential artists today.
Marine enthusiasts and researchers were left in awe as a super pod of dolphins was spotted at the coast of Monterey Bay. California, in what's expected as calling a rare and breathtaking spectacle. The massive gathering included northern right whale dolphins, specific white-sided dolphins, and even baby calves, with many leaping over 20 feet above the water in an extraordinary display of agility. Evan Brodsky, a captain and videographer with Monterey Bay Whale Watch, captured stunning footage of the rare event, sharing it on social media as a mind-blowing experience. Superpods of this scale are uncommon, particularly for northern right whale dolphins, which usually travel in much smaller groups of 100 to 200 individuals. Scientists say dolphins form superpods for a variety of reasons, including hunting, protection, and themselves, of course, in predators and social bonding. Monterey Bay, known for its rich marine ecosystem, has become the hotspot for wildlife sighting, which researchers recently recorded thousands of resource dolphins in the same area. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration notes that northern right whale dolphins are unique among their species as they lack dorsal fins and are renowned for their acrobatic abilities. Well, that's a wrap right here on World News Tonight. Upcoming next, of course, we've got Anuradhi Wickramasinghe standing by for Nightly Business Report. I'm Akwil Qureshi, and do stand by because we've got visuals from a very unique place. This is visuals of dogs wearing colourful outfits in Rio ahead of the carnival. Well, thank you for watching. Good night.